I think labeling yourself an influencer devalues what you do. I'm 29, I'm unhappy, bunch of failed businesses. And then it's like, what do I do now? At 30, my last business failed. And then I had to say, okay, mom, I got to move back home. I was very depressed. I got credit card debt. I'm living at home with my mom. I locked in for 3 weeks, went out and started taking action. Investing in real estate won't make you wealthy. It won't. Timing is an equation in entrepreneurship that people miss all the time.
A lot of people take failure very personally. If one thing fails, they stop, let alone 2, 3, 4 things.
People that bought in Dubai 20 years ago are living life right now. I love America. I didn't see America thriving in that span of time. I would say use your 30s to actually earn, before that to learn. This is where I really got rich.
I hope you guys are excited to get into this episode. Don't forget, if you would like to purchase an investment property in Dubai, make sure to fill out the form below and book a free consultation with me.
Welcome to the Building Wealth with No Borders podcast with me, Lamide Elizabeth, where I'll be bringing you guests from around the world to share their strategies on building wealth. And today we are in Dubai with serial entrepreneur, property developer, and investor, Maxwell.
Thank you for having me.
Is that actually your name or is that your brand
That's
name?
my real name.
Maxwell?
Yeah,
I love that. From what I've read online about you, you are truly what they call a self-made entrepreneur, in my opinion. And you have actually documented that journey from living with your mom to, having a multi-million-dollar net worth. But I really want to start the podcast today just kind of learning more about like what your background was, how you grew up, what you studied, what you wanted to be, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, this is good. This is going to take a while. I try to shorten it up, but I knew my parents are immigrants to America. My mom and dad are Jamaican. They're known hustlers around the world. Like Jamaican cultures are known to have 8 jobs, right? That was my parents, right? So, growing up, I seen the hustle, and I recognized it. I was the middle child, so they said the middle child is a little different than all of them, because parenting happens in cycles, right? So my older brother and sister, they probably got the others. They did get the other side. They were born in Jamaica. My older brother and sister. I was born in America, so I was the first of that. So in those phases of my parents' lives, they had a different life. Mm-hmm. So my upbringing was different. And then my older brother and sister, they had a different life than we all had. And so, I wasn't the best student. I wasn't bad. I didn't give trouble. The teachers liked me, but I didn't like doing the work. I thought school was boring and stupid, right? Personally, I just thought it was. So I went to school. I never did homework. I just didn't like it. Sometimes I would do pretty well on tests, but I'm not a good standardized test taker. So that led to, all right, you're not going to college because nobody's going to take you.
Bad?
Yeah, barely a 2.0.
Okay.
There was some times through the year where I didn't even have a 2.0, where I had to stop playing sports because you had to maintain a 2.0 to even play sports.
And what were your parents saying at this point?
They know I wasn't dumb. Like I was a hard worker, I was bright, I was intelligent, but I just didn't fit in that curriculum of school. Mm. So I at first they tried to reprimand me pretty well. I was pretty afraid of it. But at that point, I passed all my grades, as in like moved on to the next grade. I just wasn't an outstanding student. So they kind of eased off a little bit from that, but I think they still supported me at the end of the day. I graduated high school and my only option was stay in your hometown or go to the military. So I went to the military. I learned some disciplines. That I would say. I learned a lot of core beliefs. And then, in retrospect, even though I don't believe in what I was doing then now, but still, I learned a lot of disciplines. And through those disciplines, it kind of shaped me as a young person. So going from 17 to like 21, getting out of the military, it's kind of like you just got out of high school, but now you're a more disciplined adult.
You went when you were 17?
17.
You were allowed to join the military at that age?
Yes.
What do you do when you're there?
Well, the first thing you do is you go to basic training.
Okay.
You learn the basic skills of being a airman. I was in the Air Force. I wasn't flying planes or anything, but
okay.
So I learned just the disciplines, and then you learn how to carry a weapon, how to shoot, how to fire, and then you get trained into your actual job.
Okay.
But I would say my experience in the military was good with the people, but I hated the military.
Okay.
Because it only rewarded people based on their time. It wasn't about performance. It was about they call it time and grade. The longer you're here, the more rank you get, the more control you have.
Right.
That was a stupid system, right? I could remember questioning things as an airman, and they're like, "You're not supposed to do that." I was like, "But the way we're doing it is inefficient." They didn't like that. So
Are you in any danger, by the way, when you join at this stage, this early stage?
Of course, yeah.
So you're actually like going to...
Yeah, people go to war at a very young age. I graduated basic training when I was November 12th. I remember that. My birthday's November 2nd. I just turned 18. And some of those guys go to maybe I'd say probably 10 to 12 weeks of job training, then they get shipped off. Yeah, so at 18, I was a marksman at 18. But anyways, it was a small but significant part of my life. It taught me disciplines.
Right.
And then when I came out of there, I just went back to my hometown and I started businesses. I remember my first one was like a lawn care company. And then while I was doing the lawn care company, I got my broker's license. Well, I got my salesman license. And then I got my broker's license back to back. So I worked for a regular brokerage for a year and then opened up my own brokerage, all before I was 22.
What made you want to go and get your broker's license?
Everybody was doing real estate. I was like, I'm about to be rich. You know that thing, right? Like, I'm going to sell the most beautiful home. And meanwhile, I can't even afford like a $600 a month apartment. But that's the hype and the dream you believe when you get into like real estate property brokerage.
Who did you see around you that was like doing it? Because I mean, real estate is big here in Dubai, as knowing people like make a lot of money from it. But in the UK, it's not really a thing.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone in school is like, oh yeah, I'm going to sell real estate. So who were you seeing that was like making you think, yeah?
I think at that time, it was the height of one of those real estate cycles where it was in a big recovery phase, right?
Okay.
Or expansion phase, I should say. And so you see billboards of realtors on billboards and you would see commercials. You'd be like, man, these people are making money. At least that's what it looked like, right?
Okay.
That was the Facebook age. And you're like, I'm going to go do that. Why can't I do that? And so you do it and get it. But I did regular brokerage, buy and sell for a year. And then I opened up Infinity Property Management Investment where I was property managing.
Okay.
And I did that for a while. And then 2007, 2008 happened. And then I ran away from real estate. And then from then I did everything under the sun. Like I started multiple businesses. That's when I started traveling across the country in America. America is very big.
Yes.
Very, very big. So I was living in Orlando, Florida. I moved to LA. I've done many different jobs, many different things, started many different businesses. They all failed. But I think more importantly, each one of those failures taught me a lesson that made me a better entrepreneur. Because there's no book, there's no guide for that. And then after I started picking up and learning everything, it all just flushed out again. I was unhappy. They're like, okay, what do I do now?
How old are you at this stage now?
I would say by this time, I'm now where I'm at now. I'm saying probably 29.
Okay.
So now I'm 29. I'm unhappy. Bunch of failed businesses. And then it's like, what do I do now?
Can you tell us about some of those bunch of failed businesses?
Yeah. So I did lawn care. I did real estate. That failed. I think it was doing pretty good at real estate, but it failed because of the crash. And then I did marketing for big brands, got some good contracts. I started it was called American Notary Solutions, where documents get notarized in the UK. Does that happen? So I started that where people were mobile. So I was making money off of everybody doing that. But you could there's so many different businesses that I started, created an app, all types of things. You could just name it. Restaurant. Yeah, all different.
Wait, how were you coming up with all these ideas? What was making you go on to the next thing? Were you doing them all at the same time?
No, it's like you see things as a young person and you get ambitious and you study it and then you try to do it. I was very ambitious. I'd find my way in situations where, okay, somebody has a restaurant, they're failing, they're about to go out of business, but I'm a marketing guy. I can get your business back. So in exchange for me coming in and saving your business, I want equity.
Mm-hmm.
You negotiate the equity, you work day and night, you sleep in the restaurant, you get it nice, you get it popping again. And then eventually you learn something about payroll and taxes and all those things that can catch up to you. And you're like, we've saved it, but there was stuff that I didn't know about. Just as an entrepreneur, I didn't get there. So those things fail. But you just always, and the thing about it is I was just always moving to the next thing. If this thing failed, I'm moving to the next thing. And then...
But how did you not get like dismayed? Like, oh my God, another thing failed. A lot of people take failure very personally, right? And they will, if one thing fails, they stop, let alone 2, 3, 4 things.
Yeah. I would say hindsight 2020, for me that I realized, because I have friends that also do the same thing. 1 or 2 things, they fail and then they just go back to what they know. For me, it was like, every time I'm failing, I'm learning something from the previous business. Mm-hmm. So whether it's learning payroll and taxes in that business, when it's learning how to be a better manager, learning how to pick employees, Like every business taught me something that got to the point where I was like, boom, I started a business and it was very successful. And I think what happens is people are not actually afraid to fail because of their own self-worth. I think they're afraid to fail because of what their friends and their family say about them. But because if you can fail in secrecy, you would try as many times as you can.
That's true.
But if you fail and then you're at the next family gathering and then they're like,
how's that business
yeah,
going?
exactly. So what you doing now? You know? And so those things make you kind of like, all right, I'm just going to do what everybody else calls normal. I'm going to go get a job. I'm going to try to work my way up through there. I'm going to be unhappy the whole time. Then I'm done. Like retired. But I don't think that was the life I ever wanted to live. So then at 29, as a man, that's been away from home since 17, 30's coming. I'm like, I need to figure my life out. I'm not married. I don't have any kids. I'm about to be 30 years old. And when you're younger, you think 30 years is that mountain you have to cross of where you're supposed to figure yourself out.
Yes.
And at 30, my last business failed, which was the app. And then I had to say, okay, Mom, I got to move back home.
What was this app about?
It was an app. So in America, there's this thing called experiential marketing, where brand ambassadors work for a brand at an event for a certain period of time. So it could be like a county fair and a big telecommunication like Verizon or whoever is going to be there. And they need 12 brand ambassadors for 4 days for 12 hours a day. You know, these young people get paid. They're just collecting data, doing the, you know what I mean, that type of stuff. And so I was the sourcing behind this. And I used to work at a company that was on the bigger side of experiential marketing. And we would have like $20 million budgets for like 9 months. And the problem was we were using online Craigslist or Facebook groups to find talent that we were paying like $20, $25 an hour. So we can risk losing a $20 million contract because we can't find a $25 an hour employee. And so I was like, I'm leaving this company. I'm going to solve a problem. And then decided to start an app. Didn't work.
Can I ask you, knowing what you know now, if you were to go back into all of these businesses that you said failed, do you think you could have saved them? Do you think you could have made those ideas work? I'm just asking because a lot of people, knowing when to quit can also be quite hard, right? There's that thing of kind of like deciding between, am I giving up too early and maybe I can push through and I can actually make this work if I just stick with it? Or versus actually, no, this is not it. I need to move on.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. Knowing when to quit is important. But if I had, now that I know what I know, I could have saved some of those business. But also importantly, you know, entrepreneurship is a business is also about timing. So if you're too ahead of your time or you're too late, it doesn't matter what kind of grit you have, how much money you have, it's not perfect timing. And timing is an equation in entrepreneurship that people miss all the time. They miss that part of it. But I think I could have saved a few of them from the knowledge that I have now, but some of them were just too early.
So what I really liked about your story is, like you were saying about the big 30, right? I think for a lot of young people, so average age of people, or the majority of people watching this podcast are between the 25 to 34 age range. And for a lot of people, if they don't have their life sorted by 30, we kind of feel like, well, that's it. They're like, no more risk. Like, I'm just going to go get a job. Like, it's too late now, because realistically, you can avoid a lot of responsibility, right? Like, I'm someone who I pride myself on like having limited liabilities that allows me to move around and do so much stuff. By the time I hit my early 30s, I know that I'm not going to be as liability free as I am now. You want to have kids, you want to get married, you want to have a house or whatever. So that 30 age feels very critical. And for you, I think maybe in one of your previous interviews, you were like, I was 30 and I was broke. And then I think you're maybe around 40 now and you're a multi-millionaire, right? So your story shows that actually, if everything isn't going right by 30, you can actually still make it work. Yeah. So what was that turning point for you? Like, what was this transition? What did it actually feel like as well, being 29 and like asking your mom to move back home?
I mean, if you have immigrant parents, it's okay to come back home. But for me, growing up as an American in America, it felt like it was the worst thing, right? You lose that independency. I know better now. But 30 is not that age. And when you actually study like entrepreneurs, you figure out most of them didn't happen into the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Like there's a part of your life where you have to learn. right? And I think that is what your 20s are for. You have to learn and explore and gain perspective on the world, right? Your own perspective, because everything you have prior to that is given to you by your parents, your family members. It's not something you have on your own. So traveling, like you said, and you've gained so much perspective by traveling that you don't even know. It's like data that goes in your head and it's not used until you need to recall it. But 30 was that number for me. And I think a lot of people, like you said, even watching this, but you don't have to have it figured out by 30. I would say use your 30s to actually earn, right? Before that to learn.
Okay. So you moved back home at 29. What was the game plan?
I had no game plan. I was like, what am I going to do? And so at that point, I was very depressed, right? And I think that's in Black American culture. I think now it's become a word we can use, but before it wasn't a word we could even use. I was depressed. Like I locked myself in my room. I, would sometimes go days without like eating. Not just because you're just like laying in bed, just thinking, okay, this has been all crazy. And then I said, what do I know? What do I like? And real estate came back to me. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get back into real estate, but this time I'm going to go as an investor.
Okay.
So now I'm 30 but I don't have no money.
Yeah.
I got credit card debt. I got no money. I'm living at home with my mom and I got basically a beat up old car. What happens? I don't know. So I started going online and I started reading. And I had a friend whose dad was very successful in real estate, but we never knew what that meant. I never looked into that. What does that mean? And he told us one day, one of his strategies was wholesaling real estate. He explained it to us in like 3 or 4 minutes. And that day, all day, just kept playing in my head. So then I went back home. I locked in for 3 weeks, found every podcast I could find. And information was very limited back then. Podcasts, YouTube, anything I could read. Anything I can listen to, anything I can watch. And I grasped the concept of it, and just went out and started taking action. And after that 3 weeks, I made like 14 grand on my first deal.
Can you explain to us what this real estate wholesaling is?
Yeah. So America is a common law country, meaning that if you find an asset, a home, and you put that home under contract under its value. So typically homes are distressed, unkept, inherited, divorces happen, all these things. There's abandoned homes. So I found an abandoned home that was run down and I contacted the owner. I found the owner's information and I asked them if they wanted to sell it. It's like, sure, we want to sell it. But we've been wanting to get rid of it, but it's in such terrible condition, no real estate agent would take it.
So did you like walk past it and was like, oh, this looks abandoned? Or
Yeah, it was actually in a neighborhood. So there's this thing called driving for dollars. It was a term that they came up with in the industry of wholesaling. So I drove in a familiar area that I was used to, which was a neighborhood I grew up in called Salem Woods. I drove down this street called Flintfield Drive. I still remember it. The address is 114 Flintfield. I'll never forget it. And I saw this house. The bushes were big. The grass was tall. I was like, this is exactly what they're explaining on the podcast. It was like my aha moment. So then I was like, I need to get a hold of this person. So in America, property records are pretty public.
Yeah.
So you go down to the house, you look, you find the information, you call the person, and the person inherited the home from their aunt, I believe. Haven't lived in it in a while. It was abandoned. I think it even had a hole in the roof. And called this person. I asked them if they wanted to sell. They wanted to sell. I didn't know what to offer because I wasn't that keen on what the prices were. I threw out a lowball offer. The person took it. Keep in mind, I think it was like $32,000, $34,000 is what I was offering for the home. They accepted. I went for
$32,000 for a home?
See, I thought you said distressed properties were risky.
Wow.
Exactly. So this is what I mean by distressed. Remember, this person inherited it. They were behind on taxes, right? A couple years, maybe a few $1,000s. And it needed a full rehab inside. Okay. But the market value was somewhere around 160, 170. So now I have a contract on that property, let's say $32,000. I need to find somebody that actually has $32,000 because I don't have it. Mm-hmm. So I find a guy named Mark. These are real names, by the way. And no, sorry, Greg. Greg. So not Greg. I won't say his last name, but Greg. I found Greg. I posted it on Facebook Marketplace at the time. Home for sale, I think $40-something thousand. Remember, I only have a contract that says I have the right to buy this home within a certain period of time. So therefore, I have equitable interest in that property, meaning that the owner of that property can't do anything with that property in the time that I have the contract. So Greg's wife calls me. I agree. They come see it. They want it. They buy it. I make $14,000. Now, how that works is I have a contract for $32,000. Greg and I have a price that's above that $14,000 difference. Greg pays the attorney to close the deal, which is the total amount. The lady gets her $32,000. I get what's left over, which is $14,000. He walks away. The property's still worth $175,000. He's going to go do rehab for, I don't know, $35,000, $40,000, $50,000. So he does it. He has this much money in it. It's worth this. And then he sells it for that extra price, just like a traditional rehab. Basically, we're doing the dog hunting for these properties that they don't have the time to find.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And I perfected that craft so much to where I was doing my following week, I did one for $7,000. Now remember, this is $21,000 in a month from broke. That's more than I would make in the military an entire year.
Wow.
So then I'm like, aha, I can do this.
How did you feel?
Oh, I felt like $1 million. It felt like I won the lottery. I felt like $1 million. You couldn't tell me it wasn't $1 million. That first, I didn't even have a business open. I had them write a business name on the check at the closing, but I didn't actually have the business set up because I didn't have the $150 to set up the business yet.
Wow.
So I had to borrow money to set up the business, then go open up the bank account, and then put the check in there, and then it took 14 days to close. The longest time of my life waiting for that money. But then it closed, and I was like, I'm going to do this full time. And I did it for 8 years straight. Built a team, had a 15,000 square foot office. I was servicing hedge funds that would buy distressed deals. Hedge funds would call me and say, I want to buy 1,800 homes this year. Here's the criteria. Find them.
How did you get to a point where hedge funds were contacting you? Was this through social media? Like
supply and demand. So what hedge funds borrow money and they have to return a certain investment. And if they're into property, your name starts to go around. So if you're closing 10, 12 of these deals every month, people are like, who is this?
But how did they know that you're doing that?
Closing attorneys that are closing the deals, other investors that are closing the deals. And they're seeking out. They have to find these deals because the money's just sitting there in their bank account. And if they don't use it, they have to still pay a rate of return back to whoever they borrowed it from.
Yes.
And so they're contacting and they're like, okay, we've got $40 million. We want X amount of homes. Find them. And it's literally called their buy box. A 3-bedroom, 2-bath, newer than 1950s, or a 3-bedroom, 1-bath that can expand to a 2-bath. Must be brick, must be this, blah, blah, blah. You literally go around and you find these homes, put a margin on it, and you're selling them like crazy.
And your strategy for finding these homes, like if someone tells you need to find 1,800 homes, what's your strategy for like, okay, I got to find these?
This is where I really got rich. Data, real estate data. So all homes are recorded. Everything about homes is recorded in America. And this data is kept somewhere. Somebody aggregates this data. So then I decided to start to aggregate this data myself along with 2 other guys. And we created this property software that allowed us to be able to find these and market to these people. Now, it wasn't the best software, but I made a ton of money out of that. That business did this, but then we got real good at skip tracing. Skip tracing is basically, you see that house, you need the number to the owner. We have the data. We had the data for the entire America. So then people would pay us just 25 cents to find a number for that person. Now imagine 25 times millions and millions.
But you said this was already public, right?
Correct, but it wasn't. It was public, but every single 50 states in America has different counties. I live in North Carolina. There's 100 different counties.
Right.
This data is collected 100 different ways just in that one state. So you have to aggregate it, then make it pretty so that somebody can just type in 123 Main Street, this city, this state, and then it pops up.
Right.
You're not going to go to the county records to go look for it. We'll do it. We aggregated it for you. So we started doing skip tracing, started making a ton of money. I was making more money than I ever thought doing that. But then I started learning that side of the business, which was SaaS. And then it just kept going. But I had partners. I was never just a solo guy. On wholesaling, yes, I was all by myself. But other businesses, I learned in my previous 12 businesses, don't try everything alone. Bring in smart people.
If you're enjoying this content, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. And if you would like to become an international property investor in Dubai or in the UK, the link to book a free consultation will be in the description box below. If you're not quite ready to invest yet, check out the affordable video courses that will also be linked in the description box below. And if you would like to relocate to Dubai, set up your business in Dubai, or anything else related to relocating to Dubai, check out www.theprofessionalnetwork.com.
That's sick. That's amazing. I want to ask you about obsession.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that you were super passionate about wholesaling, or did you force the obsession? The reason that I'm asking is because I have realized that a lot of people who do get super successful tend to obsess about whatever it is that they want to do. Like, I don't know if you've watched like any Mr. Beast interviews, but he's super obsessed with all the little metrics that go into creating these YouTube videos, right? So obsession is key, but I'm just kind of wondering, and I've been reading books on this as well, trying to figure it out. Is it something that you manufactured, right? And is the obsession maybe money and then just wholesaling was the means, right? You said you locked in for 3 weeks and you consumed everything. What was your obsession? Was it the strategy? Was it money? Was it just because you were maybe in a state of desperation? Like, what do you think made you really successful and really go for it?
I think obsession is definitely a key ingredient in people who are successful, 100%. I think at the time when I was 30 and broke, the obsession was just to get out of the situation that I was in.
Right.
I was already an entrepreneur, whatever that means, right? At that point in time. But the obsession, I believe, can be manufactured or refocused into other things. So you have the idea, I want this lifestyle. That's the obsession.
Mm.
The obsession is I want to get here.
Right.
The obsession is not what tool I use to get there. Right? Like I need to build this wall. That's my obsession. But the obsession doesn't say I need to use a hammer to nail it can be whatever I need to do. So the obsession is, I think when you do read about successful entrepreneurs, when they grasp onto something, it's very hard for them to let go and they become very obsessed. So I think you can use that obsession, but refocus it on the smaller things that help you get to that big obsession.
Right.
So I don't think it's just focused on, I love real estate. Because anybody tell you they love real estate or love wholesaling is lying to you.
Mm.
They may love the outcome of that closed deal, but they're striving for freedom. Freedom is the obsession. Now, freedom is defined by yourself. My freedom is different. Your freedom is different.
Mm. Did you ever when you started making lots of money, did you ever get fearful that like maybe about the amount of money that was coming in or the responsibility that was over your shoulder? Or did you kind of was you someone who just thrived under it all?
No, it is a big responsibility. I think you get, I would say in the beginning, it looks like fear. Because there's this big responsibility where you walk into this office and it's like huge office and you got maybe 60 people working and realize those 60 people all have family members. So let's say 60 times 4 live in their house. There's 200 people that are depending on me to do the right thing.
Right.
Now, that comes with the level of money. There's a lifestyle amount of money, and then there's a level of where you have full responsibility for a lot of people's livelihoods. So you get in fear. You're like, what if I mess up? So then that's when I became obsessed with mentors. I was seeking out mentors that had already built big companies and try to figure out how they handled this situation. Mm-hmm. So you do get fear, but that fear then turns into you take on that responsibility. You start to embrace it, and people get good at it, or they fail.
Okay, I want to move on to something a little bit different. Sure. So we're in Dubai right now.
Yes.
And you started in America. So why and when did you move to Dubai?
I moved to Dubai almost 3 years now. And people hate when I answer this question, right? Because I love America. Don't get it twisted. I love the people, most of them, not all of them. I love because I lived in North Carolina, where you can consider pretty much like a rural part of America, right? Not all of it's rural, but I love all aspects of that. The food, the culture. But I think what I realized as an investor, and even though I'm 40 years old now, I consider myself young in the world of investing and really young in general, right? 40 years is not, I wouldn't say that 20 years ago, but 40 years is young. Mm. And I have an appetite for risk. And I also have to look into a long-term 100-year plan. Now, I know I'm not going to live another 100 years, but Family members should. And so I need to create a 100-year plan. And I didn't see America thriving in that span of time. So where can I explore? So let's just explore. Me and my wife, we say, let's go explore. Let's figure something else out. We have the money, we have the means. Let's travel to see what best fits what we like. And then we came here.
Why did you pick here?
We first came on our honeymoon. She was already visiting here before. We came on our honeymoon. Is it a honeymoon after you get married? Yeah, honeymoon.
Yeah.
Honeymoon, right? We came on our honeymoon and I was like, oh, this place is pretty cool. Then I said, we should go back soon. So we went back and we went for we spoke at an event. I was like, it's still cool. Because, most times when you visit a place, it's cool. Then when you go more, it's not cool, right? So then we went back a second time. I was like, this place is pretty cool. I like this. It seems pretty convenient. Then we said, let's go for 3 weeks. Or no, let's go for 2 months. Mm. We never went back.
To America?
Never went back. We went to visit one time.
Yeah.
We built so I have a house, I have a ranch on 20 acres. We just built it. We lived in it 1 year and then we left.
Wow.
But Dubai is good. Here's what I would say when people try to say, we're all chasing a lifestyle, whatever that means to everybody. And if you got to pay, let's say you pay $10,000 a month to live here and $10,000 a month to live somewhere else. I think your $10,000 here gives you a better lifestyle than where we were.
100%.
Point blank, period.
Yeah.
And I think as we move into a world economy and a borderless world, it's important.
Love that statement. Because this podcast is called Building Wealth with No Borders. So
there you go.
Yeah, I love that statement. How has being in Dubai impacted your entrepreneurship journey, if it has?
It's made me hustle even more.
Why?
Man, you're around so much success and you meet so many people that, I don't know, we all grow up with limitations in our mind. And I tend to meet people here with very little limitations on what is possible. And it inspires me. You just keep moving forward. You like to surround yourself. I have a very small group that I hang out with in Dubai. Mm-hmm. But they introduce me to people that I'm just impressed by some people's stories. Mm. I think where I was in America, I didn't really get that much.
Mm. I get that. Okay, so you have a real estate development company, right, called PADCO?
Correct.
Pan-African Development Company. You have development in Zanzibar, Tanzania, with a development value last time I saw was $45 million. Maybe it's more now?
Yes.
Okay, well, amazing. What made you want to get into development and why Zanzibar? Why Africa?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I told you from wholesaling, I did a bunch of flips after that. So we in wholesaling, we had a ratio where you get 10 deals, you keep 2, right? So you didn't give away all the wealth. Then it became 10 and 3, 10 and 4. Got to a point where it was like 10 and 8. So I was keeping 8 of these deals and I was flipping them. Mm. And then out of the flips, some of them I would keep as rentals. So I started building a portfolio of rentals and I started rehabbing to get the cash to make even more. So when you buy a house for $30,000 and you put $40,000 into it to rehab, you start to do this pretty consistently. So at any given moment, I'd have 7, 8, maybe 10 rehabs going on at one time. That is developing. It may be scattered, but I'm running 10 crews, 10 Gantt charts. You're literally doing everything that a developer would do except for going from the ground up.
Right.
And I did a ground up project. I liked it, but then I left America. Remember I said my parents were Jamaican, right? So July 2nd, I go to Zanzibar, land, flying over, like, man, this looks like Jamaica. I land, like, man, this really feels like Jamaica. It's like, this is crazy. People are laid back, beautiful ocean water, nice culture, friendly people, fun going people. When you travel, I'm sure you do the same. You're always looking for opportunities. Mm. I'm going around. I'm like, with my wife, I'm like, we should buy land and build a beach house. Dubai's pretty hot in the summer. This is 5 hours away. We can go there every summer, hang out at the beach. That turned into, there's this big piece of land that's available. How much is it? Okay, put an offer in. Oh my God, here we go. On vacation, putting offers in. And we buy this piece of land, not on that trip, but the next trip. We go back in September, we secure this piece of land. And Zanzibar has just been a blessing in disguise. And everything lined up perfectly. I didn't plan it. It just happened.
And what I love about what you said, so one of the things that I'm a big advocate for is I call them like wealth building trips or wealth building holidays, right? Because typically when people go on holidays, what a lot of people will do is you'll go to a resort, and in the resort, you'll find people who are where you're from. I remember like there are times where I've traveled, gone to a resort, and it's all British people. And it's like, I'm leaving my country, but then I'm back with the same people. And I'm not even seeing, and when you're in resorts as well, you can be so disillusioned about what the country's actually like and what's actually going on. And then I started going on what I called wealth building holidays, where I would go and I'd have fun and do all the holiday stuff. But then I'd go visit properties and I'll speak to local people and I'll try to find contacts out there. And that's when you start to that's when you start to identify opportunities, because people always ask me like, oh, how do you start building wealth with no borders? I'm like, you have to travel. Like what country I can't tell you. You need to travel. When you travel and you have conversations and stuff, you will start to see the opportunities that are out there. So I really love that. So can you tell us a bit more maybe about your projects? How much do they cost? What are the returns? Maybe just a bit more about like the Zanzibar market. Why would an investor invest there?
So we when we started PADCO in Zanzibar, there was no development projects like we've done, like we're doing. Community sidewalks, parks, coffee shop, like the full experience of, this is a traditional development project. So we came up with the concept. Our first project is in Nungwi, which is a high tourist destination. Most people go there because of the sports and water activity and the culture around in that village. And so we built 45 villas, 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms. We built 30 of them are 2 bedrooms, and they're 175 square meters, 150 square meters. The 3 bedrooms are 175 square meters. And the beach is right there. So here's the kicker. The 2 bedrooms started at $185,000.
2 bedroom, $185,000.
Yeah. So the 2 bedrooms were like 2 something. These sold out.
That's good.
These sold out in less than 60 days. I think it was 45 days. So all these were reserved, off-plan development. We're pretty much completed with construction now. We're getting to that point. Some delays we had just because building on an island, you import everything.
Right.
Even your cement. So your cement, your steel. So we've learned that. And then we just launched a new project late last year, which is Chikwani. It's 120 units, apartments and villas, beachfront. And then we launching now a 300 unit affordable homes. Now this is just for the locals.
Oh, nice.
So these are homes that are under $28,000. 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom.
And that's on the same coast?
No, this is on a place called Fumba Town.
Okay.
It's coast area, but it's a new up and coming area. And so projects like that, we've bought another piece of land on the East Coast of property that's going to be around 140 units. We bought another piece of land on the North Coast so we're buying land to do development. Like we're going to be there for a long time. And these properties have 2 things in mind. And the reason why you should select Zanzibar. Most people know that real estate is in cycles. I'm sure you know, right? People that bought in Dubai 20 years ago are living life right now. At that point, 20 years ago, Dubai probably wasn't on the top of everyone's list.
Definitely.
Now you can't even build fast enough here. Zanzibar is one of those places where it's beautiful Indian Ocean, amazing culture, and the tourist scene is booming. They invited us to make the investment in the country, so it's aligned with what they want to do. They want to bring in more higher end guests, more higher end properties. They can collect more money in taxes, right? It all helps the economy. But Zanzibar is one of those things where you'll look back 10 years from now and said, I could have bought a property there for $180,000. Even our new one's $132,000, I think, for an apartment, beachfront. It has appreciation, and the returns are like 12 to 18%. And I'll tell you why the returns are so crazy. They have a peak season. They have demand all year long, but their peak season is crazy. And there's not enough hotels on the island to keep up with guests. They literally cannot fit any more guests. So Four Seasons is building there. Big company from Spain is building there. All these big brands are now building hotels there because they see the demand, But there's a set of travelers that don't like to go to resorts, right? That's me. I don't do resorts when I travel. I book an Airbnb, try to find a local guide, get a local driver. And so that demand is very high. And so your return is going to be plus 15%. Sure.
That's insane. What would be some of the cons? So if, let's say, I was like, I wanted to contact you, maybe look into one of those properties, what would be the cons?
Internet's not that fast, right? It's like it's still a developing country, developing island. Internet can be slow sometimes. There are sporadic power cuts, but everything we build is with solar or generators as well. So we combat that. It's not for everybody.
Right.
But neither was Dubai 20 years ago.
Right.
Right. So now it is for everybody. So now you're paying for that. So, it's different investment strategies, different people, but this investment you'll be out of in 4 years. Like you'll recoup your money in 4 years.
That's good. Why did you decide to, which is a good thing, but why did you decide to build for local people? Most people would target international buyers because you can charge more and they have more money, people would say. So why did you then build something for locals, which is amazing, but yeah.
So my main market is the luxury market, but I think developers go into a place and they sometimes insensitive to the local culture. Us building the affordable homes is not a money profit venture.
Right.
It is literally to balance out the equilibrium of developers coming.
Right.
Because we can't keep building luxury, and you not build up the middle class of where you are. Because who's going to support all these luxury guests? Don't forget, luxury guests have certain demands.
Yes.
Right? Whether it's certain types of food, certain types of things they buy when they leave the hotels. So who's going to make that investment into the local economy? You have to empower them to do that. So you do that through real estate and ownership.
How did you go about funding this, by the way?
America. I took the money from America.
You funded it? You funded this yourself?
Yeah. So my first project funded all by myself. Second project funded by myself.
Why did you not look for JVs?
I've never borrowed money from a bank in my life or an investor.
Wait, so I'm sure you have a property portfolio in America, all cash.
Yeah.
Why?
Because I buy distressed properties. Remember I told you?
That's true. Oh, okay. So this is why. So the reason why I was saying that that's high risk is because a lot of the time people refinance those. Oh. And then that's where the risk comes in, because some properties you find things and you're like,
I wouldn't even know how to fill out a loan application. I wouldn't even know how to do that.
Damn, that's good, because that means all the money is yours.
But there is a setback to that. When I look back at it hindsight, not saying I would change anything. People are like, okay, you've acquired X amount of properties and it's worth this. But if you would have done it the leverage way, you could have had 10 more.
Yeah,
I agree. But you don't know how good I sleep at night. Not knowing that. I don't care if nobody pays rent. Right? I do care, but it doesn't affect what's happening. There was 5-year period. I never touched any rent money on any of my properties. 5 years. All the rent, 100% was mine, went into a different Roth account. So it made different, and it was a big difference. We still had dozens and dozens of doors, but I could have had hundreds. But in those conversations, I can say I'm not leveraged at all.
That's insane. So are you are you a super saver, right? Or you've just been making that much money that you could go all in cash on these projects?
It's a combination of both. Like I don't have any crazy luxury purchases. Like
you have a plane.
I mean, that plane was $300,000. Okay. But it was I don't have I would say my most luxurious thing. I built my own house. Right? That was a little over $1 million. But even that, I bought the land distressed. I bought 20 acres for $68,000 in the city. Right? So through the business, I bought that land, and instead of selling it, I built my own house on it. I built my compound on it. But a combination of both. I made good money, and not only that, I'm really not a flashy person. I don't drive no supercar in Dubai. I live in a nice house, yeah, but that's not what I do. Right? I got modest homes on 4 different continents. But I'm not a flashy guy. I don't drive a Lamborghini. I drive a $50,000 car.
Wow. Okay. So really quickly, I want to touch on social media. Because you're pretty big on social media, as well as your wife as well. Yeah. How important has social media been to your entrepreneurship journey?
I would credit it 80% of it. I built an audience by accident. They trusted me. And by announcing a project that can sell $10 million in 45 days.
Mm.
That's big. But that took 8 years of them trusting me. But I call it leverage. And I think people on social media that like to call themselves influencers, I am not an influencer. I'm not an influencer. I may document and show you my life. And if you want to call me anything along there, you can call us. Because you don't call BBC an influencer. They do the same thing we do. They have a product, or they have they make content that people want to watch. I think labeling yourself an influencer devalues what you do. 100%. My wife will get on Instagram 35 million views a month. That's not an influencer. It's the same thing a network TV channel does.
Right.
So they only make you call yourself an influencer so you can devalue yourself. But when you leverage that, I mean, you look at today. Look how many brands are created by, and billion-dollar brands are created by single individuals with teams, but influencers. Look at the beauty world. Look how many women are launching beauty brands worth $1 billion. It would take companies decades to do that. They're doing that in like 2-3 years.
So what you're saying, that they're not influencers, they're entrepreneurs. Is that your point?
They're everything. It's a package. So if you're an entrepreneur with your own media company that can reach millions and millions of people, you just solved, at least 30% of what it costs to launch a brand. Your marketing budget is usually what kills companies.
Okay, so we're going to be moving on to the Wealth Woe segment of the podcast, which is where one of the listeners sends in their dilemma, and they want you to just give them some advice on what they should do.
Sure.
Okay, so I'll read. This person says, I signed into a business deal in Togo where I funded all the upfront costs such as flights, hotels, deposits, food, etc., using my business credit cards to close the deal. It ended up being a scam, and those responsible have been reprimanded, but now I have this 60K debt that I cannot pay off. What are my options?
That's tough, right? Because every month those payments are due. First, take the lessons from the mistake. We all make them. But do your due diligence a lot more than trying to get into a scam. We all get scammed, right? At some point in time in our life. But the only way to get out of this is to hustle your way out of it. So whatever got you to the point where you can, get those cards, or whatever your 9-to-5 job is, or whatever your other business is, you're going to have to buckle down. But you may want to call your credit card companies, tell them about the situation. Not that they really care too much about the situation, but work out a plan where it doesn't negatively affect your credit, right? And so whether that's restructuring your minimum payments for a couple months until you're able to get back on your feet to be able to do that, but you're going to have to suffer for a little bit, but it's cool. So do that 9-to-5. Save as much, be as frugal as possible. Try to pay down that debt and make it happen. I know $60,000 right now may seem a lot, but if you put your mind to it, I think you'll be able to get over this pretty quickly.
So you also went into Africa, and one of the main reasons people don't want to start businesses there is they think they're going to get scammed.
Yeah.
How did you was that a concern for you?
Always, even in America. You get scammed anywhere. I think it's more about just doing your due diligence, and don't be naive enough to not try to get boots on the ground. You have to be there. And then you have to find a trusted partner, someone that knows the culture, because that's the most important thing. Because if they would have probably teamed up with somebody else that was local to help you vet that out, I don't know, paid them a couple $100, you probably would have found out very quickly that this is not good.
But what if the person who you teamed up with is the person who's scamming you?
Yeah, even get somebody to, feel them out. I know it sounds weird, but you have to do that because a couple $100 can save you 60,000.
That's so true.
Because it's always, and it's not bad to walk away from a deal that you're not unsure of. Never feel like you got missed opportunity. This didn't happen. It's okay. You didn't have that gut feeling. Walk away from it. So that's my advice. You're gonna have to pay it off. Figure out the best way to do it, but then learn from this lesson.
I have nothing else to add. I haven't really. It's not my field of expertise. So when that dilemma came in, I think you'd be the best person to answer it because you've invested in.
I hope that helps.
So that should be good. Okay, we're going to move on to the quick fire money question. So this is 3 questions, and then you just answer as you please. So, what is the best investment you've ever made?
Into myself.
Everybody says
it's true. Yeah, because if I could tell you, I made $10 million in 2 months. What is that? That's great, but I was the one invested into my learnings to make that 10 million.
What does that look like? How much money have you spent? Is it mentorship? Is it courses, education, books?
I came up where that time in the media world, it wasn't that much influencers giving mentorship. So a lot of my mentors are just genuine people that I've met in a cigar bar, people that I've met in business class in an airplane, having conversations, and then you create a friendship and you add value to that person, they give back. So I wouldn't say I've physically spent that much money. I have spent money on like going out and doing events and stuff like that, but mainly relationships is what I invest in. And then when you find something and you want to learn, follow somebody and spend any type of money they have to whether it's a book, whether it's whatever, be whatever. Like I spent money to hang out with Gary Vee one day, right? And that turned into a relationship, and that turned into an easy be able to, have a conversation with him to be able to get advice on things.
Was this like paying to meet him or paying for an event? Or
he did a thing where he released some shoes a long time ago, and if you bought a certain amount of pairs, you got to hang out with him.
So you bought the shoe.
So I bought the shoes. I think I spent maybe $10,000. And then that got me close to him. And I said, Gary, I'm holding an event. You want to speak at my event? He said, yeah, it's $150,000. I said, okay, I'll send you the money. Sent him the money. He flew out to Dallas. He did my event. And he was like, who is this guy?
It was $150,000 to book him.
$150,000 upfront to book Gary Vee to speak.
Okay. What is the biggest money mistake you've ever made?
Biggest money mistake I've ever made? That's a good question.
We've had like, some people say dating. Some people say like not getting rid of employees soon enough. We've had property deals that have gone wrong.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's anything real estate related. I would think I would agree with that. Is spending money on employees beyond their shelf life. And I don't want to sound like their products, but when you see somebody and a set of employees or people that you hire, you're like, I know you got it in you. Let's keep going. All right, I'm going to send you this training. I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you this. And then it just turns into they just never wanted it. And you can't want something for somebody that don't want it for themselves.
That's good. And then finally, what is one piece of advice you'd give to someone who is trying to build wealth globally or just build wealth in general?
I would say travel. And particularly, I know this is going to sound controversial.
We love controversy.
Investing in real estate won't make you wealthy.
Oof.
It won't.
Explain.
You have to have the money then to make that investment. Now, what I will say is the idea of investing in real estate is important to know and learn to understand, because when you have money, it's the way your money keeps generating money for you. And it's a very safe way to put your money into something that generates. It's going to appreciate and give you cash flow. But you need to have a business. You need to generate money faster than most people around you, because these opportunities in real estate don't wait for people.
Right.
And you've seen so many people get into so much bad debt because they don't understand what a deal looks like in real estate. So that's why I said it's important to understand what a deal looks like. But when you have your money ready for when that deal comes, buy. And understand the 4 cycles of real estate. Please understand that. Understand that there's recovery, expansion, hypersupply, recession. Understand those 4 and understand where people really make their money from.
So you wouldn't say that you built your wealth through real estate?
No.
Oh, what would you say your wealth came from?
Business entrepreneurship.
The software company?
Software companies.
Knees.
I still own data companies. And social media. I leverage social media. One of the companies that exited for a lot of money. But my knowledge around real estate is what made me and it depends what you call a lot of money. When I was doing wholesaling, you can make between wholesaling and my social media stuff, I do $5-6 million a year. But you got to get up and do that every year. It's about that big check.
I like it. This has been so good. So good. I might even invite you back at some point.
I'm here.
Because there's so much that we haven't even tapped into. But where can people find you if they want to like find out more about what you do or your developments, anything like that?
I would say follow me on Instagram, Maxwell. That's it. And I have a YouTube channel. I don't post as much there, but I just started a new channel that I haven't launched yet. But it's more about how I'm developing in Africa. And if you're interested in visiting Zanzibar, I would say start with that. Visit Zanzibar. If you like it, buy a property from us. Like, we're going to keep building, so there's always going to be inventory for you to buy something.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.